All right. Welcome back, everybody. For those who it's your first time, welcome to 199 EMP. I am going to be your TA for this session. My name is Akhila. So let's get started. I hope you guys can all see my screen. Great. Okay, so today's topics are multidimensional arrays, strings and string functions, and null. I know we covered multidimensional arrays in the last section, and we also did strings and string functions. So hopefully this is all review for you, but you'll just get more practice doing the problems and you'll be more prepared for the quizzes. So as always, you can use the homepage for any for any coding that you do, and then all the slides that I'm going through here are available on the website. Okay, so quick review on multidimensional arrays. So this is the general syntax for declaring a multidimensional array. And then this is the general syntax for initializing it. So you guys remember that you use a new keyword and the data type, and the structure should be pretty familiar to you at this point. It's just like creating a regular linear array, except now you have, extra brackets and extra numbers to put inside of the brackets. So we're also familiar with the length function. We use dot length to find the length of an array and not dot length with the parentheses. And for a multidimensional array, what you can do is you can call dot length on the original array to get the first dimension here. And if you want to get the other ones, the length of the other arrays inside of this array, then you can do array bracket 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is essentially what you guys are doing inside of the loops if you're using nested loops with a multidimensional array. So you've probably seen that on the past homework for multidimensional arrays, and we also use it in the last session. So if any of this is not reviewed to you, just go ahead and look back through the lectures and get familiar with that, because we'll be using that to solve our practice problems today. Yeah, and then just a reminder that nested loops are your friend. You're going to be using them for almost everything. And that multidimensional arrays can get pretty messy, you can expand this out to be several dimensions. So it gets messier and messier to use those nested loops to solve those problems. But if you ever get stuck, what you can do is you can walk through what's happening in every single level of the loop using a pencil and paper. You don't have to just use the screen when you're coding. So yeah, just a friendly reminder for as you're heading into today's quiz, if you're stuck and need to use some scratch paper, you are welcome to, as long as you just let your TA know that's what's happening. Okay, so here's our first practice problem for today. We're calling this grade test, and we're asking you to create a function that grades a multiple choice test. And so this is the test, essentially this array. And inside of that multiple choice test, there are 8 students. So there's 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 students. And there are 10 questions. So these are the 10 questions. So you can think of it as these columns, or sorry, these rows being each of the students and these columns being each of the answers to the 10 questions. And we've also given you a key down here. I don't know if you can see it because of this thing, but these are the answers to each of these questions. And we're asking you to go through every single student's test, grade the test based off the key, and print the score. So these two are kind of essential here. Given you some starter code to get working on this. This is the starter code. You can access the slides at the website and just copy and paste it into the homepage and then try and solve this problem. And we'll give you 10 minutes to do that. Let me know if there are any questions before we walk through it. Any clarifications? So we'll join back together at 6:18. If you want to just let me know when you guys finish, we can start reviewing the problem depending on if everyone's done. Okay, so it's 6:18, so we'll go ahead and review the problem. What did you guys think? Was this a hard problem, or an easy one? I'm just trying to get everybody, like a sense of everybody's difficulty level. It's hard? Okay. All right, we got one person saying hard. Anybody else thinking it's really easy or is it really hard? Okay, well, we'll just go ahead and review the solution for the sake of time. So for the problem like this, first thing I would do is think about my approach. How would I want to approach the problem to get the right answer? And then maybe code it out. So my first thing is I want to go through this answers list and I want to check if this key or this answer for the question matches with the answer in the keys. So this is student 1, and I want to make sure that student 1's answer to question 1 matches the first question on the keys. So I'm thinking, I mentioned earlier we need nested loops, so we'll probably need a nested loop. When I say nested loop, I'm referring to a nested for loop. And I'll need the loop to go through the answers and then check if this matches this, essentially. So let's see what that code for that looks like. So the function asked us to print it, I believe, print out the student's score. Yeah, print it out. You don't have to return anything, so we'll just write grade test. And then we should take in a char new dimensional array called answers. Oh, I see in the chat that someone has said that it was so. Okay. I think we were aiming for so that's good. Have a medium range problem. Okay, so first what we want to do is we want to look at the student answers. And so to do that, we need to do int I equals 0, I is less than. And if I want to get the length of this first dimension, answers dot length, and then go I plus this. So this will allow me to loop through every single student's answer array, basically. And then I want to keep track of how many every student got correct. Equals 0. And then I want to go through each question in that array. So at this point, what we're doing is we're looping through this, and then we're looping through each of these values. So we're looping through the rows and then the column kind of. What do you think about it? And j equals 0. J is equal to answers. Length. And then remember that for this one, you need to use the I here so that you're getting the length of this same dimension right there. I see someone posted their solution in the chat. I'll take a look at it for a finish as I go through this. So if you ran this code on here, it should run and print out the score. I can show you what the correct answer looks like. So that would be one way to validate that your approach is correct. Okay, so now we want to figure out how are we going to compare the correct answer with the student's answer. So we just do answers I, J. So this will go to this first student's, so the first loop, first run of the loop, it'll go to the first student's answers, and then it'll check if this matches with this. And then use J, and then do correct num. So we only want to increment the number of correct answers per student if they have the correct answer, obviously, in the key. See it there, and we do that. Okay, so once we've looped through all of the questions, so after this second for loop, we've looped through all of the questions for that student, we can print out the score for that student. Student, what does it say? Student, we'll give them a number. I is for J, not J, correct num. Okay, that looks correct to me. Now let's just test this out with the starter code, I guess. Please, it's not there. Okay, so that's what it looks like. prints out student got a score of 7, 6, 5, 4, 8, 7, 7, 7. Let me see what is in the chat. So it looks like you're just looping through the student list, the list of students, and you're comparing if the first array is equal to the second array. So you need to loop through the students' answer list. You have to loop through every single one of them, and you have to compare it with the to answer. Did this code work for you? Did it give the same output? Okay. Yeah, I don't think it would. I think you have to compare. I don't think you can simply compare these two arrays like that. You have to loop through each of these. Okay. But you had the right idea, I think. All right. So moving on. So the next section is on strings and string functions. The reason why we're bringing this back here is you're going to be using this pretty extensively, both in the quiz today. So hint, hint, nudge, nudge, review this list. And also for future assignments and particularly on the MP. The MP is pretty heavy on string functions. So getting that prep in now will be really helpful. So substring is one of the functions that you can overload, and you can take in the first index, or you can do the first and the ending. It'll print out that kind of substring of the original string. Not print, but it'll return. And this one, split basically gives you give it some sort of delimiter, and it'll split the string based off of that delimiter, like white space, and return a string array that splits the string up based off the delimiter. And so you might have seen this probably on some of the homeworks, and I think you'll see it on the homework for this weekend. Trim just removes the white space. Equals also saw on the last homework, the last weekend homework. This just check if two strings equal each other. I see a lot of students trying to do the double equals thing at this point with comparing two strings, and you just can't do that because there are two objects. You got to use the dot equals to compare two strings. And then char at, give it an index and it'll return kind of the character at that index in a string. And then to char array converts it obviously to a character array of the sequences. Any questions on this before we check out the practice problems? I'm gonna keep going. I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't always go through all of the lectures, but I'm almost certain you'll need it for the weekend homework. So it's just good to know it now. And of course, the Java docs are always open to you during quizzes. So trim is just the string function that removes ending and beginning white space. So at least you'll have it, you'll know it, even if you haven't learned it yet. Okay, here's the first problem. I think it's on the easier side, so we're going to give it 5 minutes. And you should write a function that given two integers, string A and string B, appends them together. But kind of the trick in the question is if the ending character of the first string and the beginning character of the second string are the same, you need to omit one of these characters and just return AB cat like this. Yeah, and then and remember to handle kind of the empty string case. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but yeah, 5 minutes. So we'll meet back around 6:35. Let me know if you have questions. Okay, so let's go ahead and review since I think a lot of people will. Also, I took a look at the multidimensional array code earlier that someone had posted, and it's very close, but you aren't looping through the entire answers list for a student. So even if you, yeah, I think you have the idea correct, but if you don't loop through the entire answers list correctly, then you're going to get the wrong total number of answers correct for a student. So I think your numbers are a little bit lower. You're only looping through the first 8 answers. Okay, so let's go ahead and review this problem. Okay. Copy over the starter code. This one is probably a pretty easy one. Looks like everybody finished it within 5 minutes. And looks like we have one person post their solution also. Yep, this looks good. Pretty similar to what I have also. This is what I had for my solution. So I was thinking that if I could just use char at, then I could compare the last two the last character of the first string and the first character of the last string, and then that would just make the whole special case where you have the double chars here. It would make it a lot easier. So yeah, I just did char at length equal b dot char at 0. And then I would just return a dot substring 0, a dot length -1, and then just b plus b. Okay, so I'm just taking the first part of the first string until the last element, and then adding the second string. And then if these two characters are then not the same, then you can just return a plus b. Okay. Oops, I see that I forgot a semicolon. Okay. Remember to test your code so that you don't run into any issues during this process. Okay. There's this. So notice how these first two test cases, they passed. I got the right solution for these. This last one is an empty case, so make sure you consider that in your code also. So if the length of A, this is how I approached it. There are probably other ways to approach it. It's just nice, simple to me. That's what's great about code. You can approach it in many different ways. So you can just, so if the length of A is 0, then you would just return B. And then if B dot length equals 0, then return A. Okay, so that one is now fixed. Yeah, just remember to test for these kinds of edge cases. You're going to see empty strings as an edge case, and then null is the other edge case that you often have to test for. Okay. Let's move on to the second string question. This one will do 5 minutes also. Also, I think this is going to be an easier question than the last one. Just put in the chat if you're finished or when you finish. Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and review this problem. If anybody wants to share their solution, we can also walk through that instead, kind of to mix it up a little bit. But if not, I can also go through it. Okay, I guess I'll go through it. So when I looked at this problem, the first thing that jumped to me was for every single char. And so I was like, that sounds like a good place for me to use the handy dandy char at symbol. So maybe that's just because I like that particular string function. And then remember that you can always test things with these test cases down here, make sure it matches what you're expecting. So for this problem, you can create like an empty string, and basically for every single character in the string, you would double it and then add it to the empty string. So if you want to loop through the every single character, you can do for int equals 0, I, then blank, and then I plus plus, and then just do result equals result plus string I. So now you're just, if you just left it like that, you're just copying all of the elements over one by one. If I just do this, whoops, not the semicolon, it's the plus sign. Then you're just doubling it. And now you can just return the result. Super easy, I think. If you were struggling with that, let me know if we need to review that one more time. I would also just maybe have the Java docs open and handy in front of you if you were confused about syntax or anything. I have no idea why this is giving me an error. System. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I forgot the semicolons again here. It's my bad. Okay. So that gives you the correct solutions, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, you could have done that, I think. Wait, can you do that? Okay, when in doubt, you can always test things out, you know. Let's see if this works. Whoops. Probably could have done this. Okay, so apparently you can't do it this way. I'm pretty sure you have to use charet. Remember that charet will allow you to get the character at a specific index in the string. So if your string was the, then it would get to the character in index 0 if you use char at 0. And I'm pretty sure you can only use square brackets for arrays, but that's only the case in Java. In Python, you can use square brackets for strings, I think. In fact, there is no char array, char in Python. Just a fun fact, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, and then remember that you can always test things out. And if you're ever confused about what works, what doesn't work, you get an error like that, you know that is not something that Java allows. I hope that cleared up your confusion about charret. It's just a way to access each of the characters and use them in different ways. So all this is doing is it's taking the original result and it's taking this character, which is the same character, and adding them to result. Okay, we'll move on to nulls since we only have like 10 minutes left, and I want to give you guys 10 minutes to work on the next problem. So null, we briefly covered this in one of the lessons, I believe. So what is it? It's just a special value for nothing. It's a reserved keyword. So you can't use it, you can't call a variable int null. I don't think I would be able to call this null, but I know. See how it like highlights, it's like a different color. And we use it for a placeholder for things, sometimes when it's not initialized, and then we'll initialize it to null. It's case sensitive, so I don't think you can do this null. This is, yeah, you could do this if you wanted to name a variable, but you probably couldn't. This, yeah. And here is a helpful tip for future problems. If you want to always check if something that can be null, if it's null. And you'll do this quite often in the homework problems, but we'll pass in null for something like null for this string, and the function won't know what to do. So just to show you what that looks like, maybe we should pass it out. Okay. So you can technically, a string can be a null, right? It can be an empty string, or it can have actual values, but it can also be null. So this function will take in this null, but it doesn't know what to do with the null, because null doesn't have a length character, null doesn't have a dot equals character, it's just null, it just exists. So what you have to do is beforehand, you need to handle the null case. And we usually will specify in the instructions how you want to handle the null case, what to do in that case if you want to return an empty string. But it's just something you should always do going forward if we have questions that require null testing. So here's the practice problem, the highest age index. You're going to take in one array, and you're going to return an input and output that is the index of the highest value in the array. So you probably know how to find the highest value in the array. It's just a for loop, and then you would just find the index of that highest value, and you would return that. Just remember that now we're going to be testing for that null case. You have to figure out how you're going to handle it. What will you do if it's null? And I've given you some starter code here that says what you should do if it's null. And so you just need to test if it's null and then return as given here. Okay, and then also you can assume that all the elements in the array are unique. Yeah. So go ahead and spend some time on that. We won't get the full 10 minutes, but let's try to give it like 5 minutes. Maybe not even 5. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and review the problem. I know it's about to be 7, so if you need to leave for some reason, feel free to. I'm just going to continue explaining. Okay, so the highest age index. All right. So remember that you're returning the index for this problem and not just the highest number. So you'll need something to keep track of the highest value, and also the index of the highest value. So I just set them to be -1 for now. You can also set it to be the first value in the array. I did -1 because, you know, I was just like expecting positive values, maybe, probably, yeah, I think that's okay. Okay, so in I is equal to 0, so you want to loop through the array first, and I is less than array length I plus. Okay, and then we just basically check if the current value in the array is greater than the largest value. Honestly, it probably would have been smarter if I put in array dot 0. Makes more sense to me. Okay. Yeah, max. If it is, then you want to reassign what the max value is to be the current value in the array, and then you want to set the index. So you can leave the index as -1 because there's no -1 index, so it'll reset itself to whatever the previous value is naturally. Although in this case, since I've set it to be 0, maybe I've set it to 0 so that it's not returning -1 for the 0th element. Okay, index is equal to I. Okay. And then after you finish that loop, you can just return the index. Where is the Okay, so looks like the answer for the first two was right, 0 and 1. Then I got a null pointer exception, so I need to handle the null case. Just if r equals null, then you want to return -1 because that's what I'm returning here. All right, that's the entire solution for this problem. Are there any questions? Anything confusing? That's it for the session today. So remember to do the attendance, and if you have any feedback, let us know. As the class gets harder, I know people are looking for more practice problems. So these are some helpful suggestions. I prefer coding that because I think it's on the easier side, and I get some of my questions from there also. So they divide it out by sections on what you're learning. So you can try that out. Also, HankerRank and LeetCode are really good. Thanks for coming, guys. Appreciate it. See you on Friday.